Hey YouTube, Bravo back with another Gloomhaven video, and this one is in relation to scenario 18, the abandoned sewers. So spoiler alert, if you don't want to know about it, stop watching now. And if you're still here, awesome, let me take you on a tour of this scenario. Starting at the top here, just a little back road in the town of Gloomhaven. I used a little bit of foam, extruded foam here, to just create a bit of a starting point. None of this is obviously in the actual playable area. This is just a bit of extra flavour to set the scene. So we've got a house with some few barrels and some people walking around. A little market stall there, a well and a tree. All of these are 3D prints, obviously. Apart from that house there, that's an MDF model. And then we've got the actual entrance to the sewers. A little bit of water runoff there at the bottom. So this is where the actual playable area commences, and this is where our heroes start. So we come down through here, past a couple of vipers and ooze, through a door, and a few more ooze and vermlings, which obviously I haven't painted yet. I've just got so much to paint at the moment. I'm always playing catch up. So into this second room, through the door, and then into our final room, which obviously none of this is set up in any particular way. I've just thrown a few miniatures around just for a bit of interest. And then I've added on just a little exit stairway back up, which isn't part of the official scenario either. I just did that for a bit more immersion. So there you have it, that's the scenario. I had a lot of fun putting this one together, and in particular doing these water tiles, which I used. They're 3D prints by Robogon. I'll put all the 3D print files linked in the description. But I basically printed them and then just zhushed them up a bit. I put some talus of varying sizes onto the prints, and then I printed out some swords, an axe, and various other things just to sort of add a bit of extra character, including these reed type static grass clumps. And then I just poured in some 2-part resin, which I tinted with Citadel Castellan Green just slightly to give it more of a sewerage type look. And yeah, really happy with how they turned out. I'm just trying to think what else I printed in particular for this scenario. Well, obviously you've got the entrance here. That again was a 3D print. And in the flavour text for the scenario it mentions that there's some damage to the sewer grate. So the bent bars there simulating it being forced open. Thought that was fairly appropriate. Printed out the ooze from Thingiverse as well. Those snakes are from the Wrath of Ashardalon Dungeons and Dragons board game, if anyone's wondering. And I also printed out some of the snakes from Thingiverse, which are a little bit different. Some vermlings there, which are again 3D prints from Thingiverse. I'll link them in. And you'll notice there's 2 types of ooze. The ones at the front there, the lighter coloured green, are Thingiverse, and these ones are proxied from, again, I can't remember if it was Wrath of Ashardalon or The Legend of Drizzt, but either way it's from a Dungeons and Dragons board game. So if anyone's watched my first 2 videos, I go through all the basic 3D terrain bits and pieces that I've used with links. And if I can work it out, I'll link those videos in this video for you. But basically I do individual hex tiles, which I print in batches and then dry brush up. So I've got a big bag of dungeon ones in grey, I've got a big bag of wood ones, and I've done some earth tiles as well in a different way, but that's another story. So essentially I print all the individual hex tiles. I've used strip magnets, which I've cut up and put little bits underneath each tile. And then that black play area you see in front of you is a 600 by 600 millimeter 1 mil thick steel sheet. So everything's magnetised. It works really well. So for example, Just drop it back in and it snaps back nice and clean. Makes it really easy to lay the scenario out because I just start putting the hexes out and you can sort of push them around on the metal without scratching it because they're quite cushioned, the adhesive strips, and you can just move them around in little millimeter increments and lay them out as you go. And once you've laid out a scenario once or twice, it gets really easy. You start to work out which wall types work best for which configurations, and it actually becomes a lot of fun laying out scenario. I really look forward to doing that part of game day. What else? So I've shown you how the doors work. They're really good. I definitely recommend if you're just starting out printing your dungeons. These doors, which I'll link, are great. The actual door slides out, it's removable, and there's a hex there which you can place minis on in the doorway, and they're just really functional, and I think they're the best looking doors as well that you can print. They dry brush up a treat, so I can't recommend them highly enough. What else have we got? I'm pretty excited. I sent off some minis for a commission paint with Mini Painting Studio, which is some skeletons and some banded archers, so I'm looking forward to getting them back because, as you might be able to tell, I can paint terrain pretty good, I think, but I struggle with the minis a little bit. The Gloomhaven minis you see in front of you are not painted by me, they're painted by a friend of mine. So he does a pretty good job, definitely a lot better than I do, but I struggle with the mini painting. I painted those snakes, which are good for me, I guess, but I'm looking forward to getting some well painted miniatures back from a commission, which I won't do a lot of. It's obviously very expensive, but I thought I'd treat myself, and here and there, when I have good minis, I'll probably send a few more away to get painted up properly. For anyone else who hasn't seen my other videos, so I've also made a bit of a play area, table toppers, I guess you'd call it, which are 4 sections for each player, which are all sort of locked together to make this recessed playing area. So I made them over one weekend, basically just used pine, covered it in neoprene, and you get these player areas essentially, which just get the camera orientated correctly. So you have your little XP and health dial mounted there on Velcro strips, so they are removable. Little player station for your bits and pieces. Got a loadout tray which has all of your items that you're using, and then a little bit of room over here for your player sheet. And there's a lot of room there around the sides for battle goals and various other miscellaneous things, but it works really well. So I'm in a room here which the wife isn't very happy, but I've reclaimed our spare room, and it's now my Gloomhaven room, which is awesome because I can leave the game set up and not have to constantly pack it down and put it back up, because anyone that plays Gloomhaven knows that that's one of the biggest headaches with this game. So I'm pretty lucky. I've got a dedicated room now. I've got the monitor, which you can probably see up there. That's linked to the laptop, so we use Gloomhaven Helper. Everyone can see what's happening on that screen. And yeah, it works really well. Another shout out, which I've done previously, but again, you can't really tell because of the lighting, but those 2 torch pillars there are 3D prints by Robogon, and you can use just the cheap $2 shop tea light candles that flicker, which are sort of built into the base. And see if I can give you an idea. It's still hard to tell, it doesn't quite do it justice, but they're flickering away with an amber light, and it looks pretty cool at night when you play sort of, not in low light, but we sort of don't have great lighting at night on purpose for a bit of immersion, and it looks pretty cool. So definitely recommend looking into those prints. But yeah, that probably covers it all. If you've got any questions about the build, happy to hear them. Just throw them in the comments. And yeah, happy gaming.